Halloween around the corner, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll share with you some ghost stories. But then I thought about it, I was like, I don't want to put like energy into that. But I did feel like maybe I should share with you some house blessing experiences that I did and let you know some of my mistakes and how I learned from them. The first one I call is Spirit and the Sword. So one time I was going to this lady's house to do readings, and at her house we were sitting in the living room, and I was doing a reading for her, and I kept feeling like she was going through this relationship problem, but not like everybody else's kind of relationship problem. It was like I kept getting that she kept going on dates, but they only lasted like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And then she would go on another date with another person. They would only last like 30, 40 minutes. And I was thinking, what's wrong? This lady is very attractive, very nice, very balanced. What is going on here? And then, so I asked her if she was going through a weird phase in her life with a lot of dates coming in and out. And she told me, yeah, it's so strange that she can't figure it out. She doesn't know what she did wrong. And she keeps wondering why she would be on a date and then all of a sudden the guy will leave after like 30, 40 minutes. And I said, yeah, I keep feeling that energy, but I'm not sure what that is. And for some reason, I keep getting back to something to do with a trip. And she said, when she thinks about it, this all started happening after she came back from a trip. And while we're doing the reading, I could feel this energy of a male figure like around and like staring at us, listening to us. And the energy felt very heavy. And I kept feeling a little bit uncomfortable because of that energy. So I was looking around the room without trying to make it obvious and still doing the reading. But it was so strong that I just had to say something. So then I was trying to figure out, what is this energy? So I said, I feel like I'm being watched. And she said, oh, I always feel like I'm being watched. She goes, it's a very weird feeling. She goes, I feel like someone's following me in my own house. And then I asked her if I can take a look around. So I started walking around her room, walking around the living room, and the energy felt really good. But then I was drawn to this one item, which was a sword. And I asked her, oh, where did you get the sword? And she said it was from a trip. And I could feel that there was something connected to a sword. I felt like a spirit was connected to the sword. So I told her, oh, do you mind? I can do a blessing and maybe clear out the sword and clear out this house. So she said, sure. So I did my ritual blessing, and of course I'm not going to go into blessings, like how to do a blessing, but I did my regular blessings, and then it seemed really good. And all of a sudden, when I looked at her, she looked so different, like something lifted off of her. It's almost like I was watching a movie about angels or something, because like you could see this column of white light come down on her, and all of a sudden the wind blows just at the right moment where her hair is blowing in the wind, and she started glowing, and she looked so angelic. And she said, I feel different. And I said, I think this is your normal, how you're supposed to feel. And for 2 years, this energy was on you and affecting you in some way. And then I was telling her how I felt this male energy connected to the sword. And she said, that's what I got from my trip. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And he said, it almost felt like this entity was put in there. So whoever made the sword or whoever had the sword before had the intention of maybe putting a certain spirit in the sword or a certain energy in the sword. And maybe I just translated it as a male figure. But it was something that was in the sword. And she said she felt lighter and she felt free. And that's the word she used, was more free. And I told her that I have this feeling that when you went on these dates, the guy was jealous, the spirit was jealous. And so every time when you would go on these dates, after like maybe 30 minutes in, the spirit would show himself to the guy. So the spirit would go into you and actually show like a part of the spirit to the person you're dating. So I think what it did was it would freak the guy out, like, why is her face changing all of a sudden? And then they think something's wrong, but they didn't know how to explain it to you, so they just left. Or the personality started to change in some way and you didn't notice. And she said, yeah, that makes sense, because she said that when she would get into conversations with them at dinner or whatever, all of a sudden they would look at her like she was a ghost, and they wouldn't call her back. They would be like, oh, I gotta go, and they would just leave. So I was thinking that was the end of my house blessing. And it really wasn't house blessing because I was there for a reading. And I just started out doing house blessings at the time. So I leave there and I decide to go shopping. So I go to the mall, but as I'm coming down the escalator, I get this really bad headache. And the headache was like so bad. And I'm thinking, why do I have this? I never get headaches. I remember that sometimes my friend used to tell me that she would get headaches when a guide or a spirit was trying to contact her and she wasn't in the right state of mind to receive the message. So they would purposely make you feel uncomfortable to pay attention to the energy change. So I was like, okay, I gotta figure out what this is. So I pulled the energy out of my head and I looked at it, and that's how I do energy translation sometimes. So anyway, I pull it out of my head and I'm talking to it. Who are you and what do you want? And I always say it kind of aggressively. It sounds mean, but my experience working with that kind of energy, sometimes you have to be very grounded and put your borders up and kind of be strong, because they can get very aggressive. So I'm telling them, what do you want? And then I hear this male voice talking to me, and he's saying that, hey, you took me out of my home. Can you put me somewhere else? And I was like, what is he talking about? So I was just like, okay, what is he talking about? And me, I'm not one of those people that, it's weird, I do readings, but I'm not one of those people that can solve puzzles really easy. And it's obvious to others, but not to me. So I was sitting there like, what are you talking about? And then and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. They're saying that that's the spirit that was in the sword. I took him out of his home. His home was the sword, or it was in that lady. And so now he doesn't know where to go or what to do. And then I was like, oh, shoot. I did the house blessing. I cleared the energy, but I didn't send the spirit out. So after sending the spirit out, my headache went away. But then it also made me realize that sometimes when you have headaches or any kind of pain for that matter, it can be spirit trying to communicate with you, or your subconscious mind telling you that something wasn't done correctly, or maybe something that's stored in your body or even emotionally stored in your body. So they became like psychic messages for me as well. So I thought I'd share with you that, because you never know, you all of a sudden you get a headache or a shoulder pain. Think about where you were, who you were with, or maybe if you're ignoring a message. Something that I want to share is called the Endless House Blessing. So this one is before I get to the house, the person tells me all these stories about what had happened. And they tell me things were flying off the shelf. They've been seeing things. Their friend came over, slept over, and they saw something. And then so-and-so had a bad nightmare. And then all this bad luck started happening. So they're piling all this information on me. I'm like, wow, I better go check this place out, right? So I decide, okay, I'm going to go do this house blessing. But I go to the house and nothing's there. It feels so calm and empty, but they insist that I do the blessing. So I go around and I do my, again, usual house blessing. And then I tell them, it's really good and clean. The energy is very clean. But they keep insisting that something's bad and nothing is working out. So they keep insisting that there's something there. So I said, okay, well, I'll come back at another time of the day. Maybe that makes a difference. I don't know, right? So I leave. I go back later on that night. And the energy was a little bit heavy, but I didn't pick up anything out of the ordinary. So I just kind of cleared the energy again. I said, no, the house is really good. They said, okay, and then I left. So later when I talked to the owner of the house, they said, sometimes we get together every Saturday and we talk about all these ghost stories. And we talk about all these experiences we had, all these fears we went through. And I was saying, oh, that's interesting. And then it dawned on me that sometimes when you think it's the house, it's not the house, it's the people. Because they want something to happen. In some way they want something to happen. And they put all this energy into all these things that they're afraid of. And they find it entertaining in a way. So they want to do like ghost hunting, or they want to, and I'm not saying that's wrong. But if they do get into that kind of stuff, they have to also do their research on what they're doing. They had so much fear and putting in so much drama and so much energy into the house that they created this entity to be there. So as a collective energy of that group, they would create something there on those days. And that's why it would happen. But it wasn't necessarily a spirit or something that was connected to the place, but they created an entity for that space, for that time when they're there. So then I had to explain to the owner that that's what was going on. And I don't know how much of it that they got. They might have just thought that I sucked, but that was the feeling that I got. But I want to share that with you because also what we do think, who we hang around, and how much energy we put into something can also manifest. So my last house blessing story is called The Haunted Restaurant. So I got a call from this owner of a restaurant, of course I won't name. During closing time at night, dishes would fly off of the rack. They would hear pans moving, and they said they could deal with it. In fact, they gave the spirit a name. And I said that's not what bothered them. He said they were so used to it already. But the thing that bothered them is they said it was getting out of hand because now the gas stove would be turning on. So if they'll walk in the morning and the flame will be really high. Or at night they'll just turn around and the gas stove would go on really high. And so they said now it's becoming scary and a problem because they don't want to get hurt and they don't want to, of course, burn the restaurant down somehow. So they're asking me for some help. So I went into the restaurant at 3 in the morning when it was closed, and I was doing the, again, regular house blessing, going around, and yeah, there was a spirit around and there's these energies around. I think though that some of the dishes and all that were also probably rats or something like that too. But when I do blessings, I merge my energy to really be one with that place. So I can get a feel of what the restaurant is feeling like or the place is feeling like. So I close my eyes and I merge my energies together to get a good feel for it. And I could feel waves of energy running below my feet. And I was like, what is this energy? So I said, I don't know too much about the history of this location, but I feel like there's water running under here. And I feel like waves of water. So either like there was some kind of a swamp here or something here before. And the one thing I do know is that anything connected with spirits, somehow, I don't know what it is, but spirits are drawn to water, or it pulls spirits there sometimes. And I think that's why sometimes when you watch those scary movies where they show like a ghost, you always see first like someone turning on the water, or the water dripping from a sink, or there's a well outside of the guy's house, or there's a lake nearby, or like there's some always connection with water. Maybe it attracts spirits. I'm not too sure. I don't want to get into that because I don't know, but that's the feeling that I got. And I said, I think it's pulling in certain energies into the place. And it's creating certain things to go on. But I also went around and checked everything else too, like checked if there were spirits there, and I felt like everything was clean again. And I was like, oh, it's fine. It's just the energy feels a little thick, and yeah, you know, the water underneath here is pulling in spirits and passerbyers. I call them passerbyers because they're not really like sticking around, but they go through from one wall to the next, or the energy goes through one wall to the next. So I felt like, yeah, this, you know, I feel that. I said, but I don't feel like there's something staying in this space, like an entity staying in this space. So I walk around again and I'm doing my rounds again, and then something makes me feel like someone's behind me all of a sudden. I'm like, I get it. The spirit was behind me the whole time, but was trying to contain its energy and be very, very light. So that it was kind of funny in a way, like, because it's like, you know how they say, like, a cat chasing its own tail. So it's like I'm going around doing this blessing, but it's like right behind me the whole time, and I'm like, oh, everything's fine, but it's like right behind me. And then so I had to like kind of trick it in a way and then send it up. And then after that, I felt like, okay, I think I got it, and it's good. So I was done with that, and I said, but you know, please let other people know that they're gonna feel like things are moving around because of something to do with the water underneath the ground. After that blessing, they said, yeah, the stove didn't turn on in the morning, so I guess that part could have been the spirit. But they said they never had any kind of incident like that since, so that was good. So what I got from this blessing was several things, actually. Sometimes it's just like rodents combined with collective energies and thoughts and the environment and maybe also spirits. So a bunch of things all at once. I hope you enjoyed this house blessing, haunted, Halloween, whatever you want to call it, story. And if you do, please like and subscribe. And maybe in the comments below, share some experience that you went through. Thank you for watching.